Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and happy Wednesday, Bayou Blitz family. I hope everybody is doing really well out there. A special happy Father's Day, happy belated Father's Day to all you dads and all you single moms playing dad. I hope all of you had a tremendous weekend. And with that, I am Bob Rose. I am one of your co-hosts to your Bayou Blitz podcast. Joining me as always is your other co-host, my friend, my partner in crime, Brendan Boylan. Brendan, how are you tonight, my friend?
Doing well. I continue the world tour a little bit tomorrow. Just a short trip, but back on the road tomorrow. And then I get to go to one of your favorite places in the world, which is called the beach. So I'm looking forward to some sunshine, taking what I can here as, we're officially into summer. So yeah, everything is good. A little bit more of a quiet week, very similar to what was going on with the New Orleans Saints. Before we jump in, because I did bring this up when we were on just a moment ago, just the two of us, I do want to say I'm very disappointed with my alma mater. Gardner Webb, do better. If you guys want to find out more about that, please go to Bob and I's former employer at SI now. And read about their softball program. There you go. But read about the softball program. I'm very disappointed, disgusted, and it's not a happy day to be a running Bulldog. But on that note, it is a happy day to be someone who's reporting and talking about the Saints. Bob, the Saints had mandatory OTAs. It's been nice because there were lots of years, speaking of our former employer, there was a lot of years where we'd be at this time of year and we would have news. And if you have news this time of year, it's not typically good news.
Right.
God, there's so many between injuries, arrests, whatever other drama was going on. So no news is good news type of situation, I think, when it comes here. And it's nice to kind of be past some of that PTSD. I remember specifically some of the summers where Marshawn Lattimore had his run-ins with the law and those, fun discussions or fun articles to write.
No, they weren't. There are certainly other ways that we could fill out, that we'd rather fill up our airways, both with video podcasts such as this, and the written word, such as like I do over at the Saints Wire right now. You don't want to have to write about that kind of stuff. Basically, no news is good news, for the next 6 weeks. That's what we're hoping for, that we're hoping for just speculation, as far roster speculation, team speculation, that kind of thing, predictions, stuff that sparks up a debate. Not somebody is hurt, somebody got their name in the police blotter, or God forbid anything worse than that. But we at the Bayou Blitz, as we have been promising you for a few weeks now, we have big news. But before I break that, don't forget, folks, that you have your chance to party in Paris for a purpose. You can join the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation. Their website is tcynow.org. But you could join the Checkout or Checkout Foundation in Paris, France, for the Saints game against the Pittsburgh Steelers on October 25th. All you need to do is contact Tracy Ransom at 225-400-3599, or you can email GLT by Tracy, TRACEY at gmail.com. Tracy Ransom is operating all the travel packages for this Get Checked or Check Out trip out in Paris. Details within the travel packages include 5 days of hotel, round-trip airfare, and airport transfers. There are still spots available. You don't necessarily have to pay in full for the entire trip right now, but a deposit is required. Final payment won't be due until August. Again, you can contact Tracy with all the rest of the details, but this is your chance to take a historic overseas trip to Paris, France for the NFL's first ever regular season game in Paris, featuring our Saints against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Prices on this package are great. You get to hang out with a few former Saints legends and, of course, fellow members of the Who Dat family as you enjoy a Saints game, overseas fun and memories, and all while benefiting a terrific charity called Get Checked or Check Out. Again, check out their website at tcynow.org. They're an organization that was put into place over a dozen years ago to help guide people and their families through a scary medical diagnosis, whether it's a treatment option, a research option, or a therapy option. Get Checked or Check Out will give you, will steer you in the right direction of where to go next and how to do it. I recommend you check out their site. Donate a little bit. Every little bit helps. But the best way to donate is take a trip like this to Paris. Enjoy something historical while benefiting a great charity. And if you followed us for a while, you know that we have supported and been a part of the Get Checked or Check Out annual tropical trip every spring. The 2027 trip. We have our dates and destination for the 2027 Get Checked or Check Out trip. And you can join us and the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation on March 18th through the 22nd in beautiful Punta Cana, excuse me. This is our first all-inclusive land getaway and will include wonderful members of your Who Dat Nation, as well as Tyrone Hughes, Courtney Roby, Delvin Breaux, Michael Lewis, and other Saints legends along with their families. Folks, I promise you that this will be an amazing and unforgettable experience. And again, all while benefiting and an incredible charity. You only have to make a small deposit within the next couple weeks to reserve your spot now. Please contact me how to do it and for all the details, or you can just call Mary directly. Mary's number is 985-516-1530. She'll walk you through the all-inclusive price. And again, just for a small deposit. Folks, I've gotten a lot of messages from you in the last year, especially in the last few months since we've gotten back from our 2026 trip to the Bahamas. I want to be a part of next year's trip. Keep me notified, keep me posted. Well, this is our big announcement. We're going to be promoting this thing every single week. And every single opportunity we can. We're going to get these Saints legends on. They are friends of ours. So I know that they're going to come on to the show. And again, tcynow.org. Check them out. But make that deposit now. If you can't make the Paris trip, please make this Punta Cana trip. I can't wait for it already. I'm getting old fast enough, so I don't want to fast forward time too much. But I've had a smile on my face all day long ever since I got the notification that these were the dates, this was the destination. I already can't wait for it. And, folks, you have 8 months to pay this thing off. All you need is a small deposit now. Again, contact me for any of the details. I will give you anything you want to know, but I need to see new faces on this trip for 2027. Brendan, you're one of them.
I know. You sent me the details earlier today. And it sounds sounds wonderful. Like you said, could start with a deposit of just $100 down. That's not bad at all. And then you can take your time a little bit to make sure that you get this thing paid off. Bob, it sounds like a great time. And I think it is about time that I also make the trip and hang out with you guys. So we're going to do our best to make that happen this upcoming year. Excited for it. If you guys need any more details, feel free to reach out to Bob, myself, and you can see and support the good cause that is right there on the bottom of the screen. Bob, we have some familiar faces in the chat. Some familiar faces we haven't seen. I guess, well, haven't seen us in a while because we're not really looking at anybody but each other. Anna's in the chat. Anna, good to see you. It's been a little bit. We're starting to think that maybe you stopped liking us or we did something to offend you because you haven't been in the chat in a while. Jerry, good to see you as well. We're going to keep it pretty simple today. As I have said over the last few weeks, maybe a few months at this point, it is silly season to me. We're still in a weird phase where, yes, we have mandatory OTAs, but we're not having these real deep, serious conversations when it comes to football quite yet. And as I brought up at the beginning of the show, no news is good news. Obviously, we've crossed off some of those things that we had questions about. Alvin Kamara, I think we check. We've got a check mark there. He reported to voluntary OTAs for the first time in forever. Cam Jordan signed, coming back to New Orleans. Those were kind of the two big question marks going into this time of year. We've already got those answers. So let's talk about what I put down as the B&B wish list. We started doing this a little bit not that long ago when it came to things we wanted to do during the offseason. If you guys recall, part of my wish list was a veteran quarterback. I kind of got that. We talked about receiver depth. We talked about so many different things, but now we're post-draft. We're kind of past the final phases of free agency. You might have kind of like a half phase or a semi phase as we get closer to training camp, just trying to fill out a training camp roster more than anything. So Bob, let's start with this. What is still on your wish list that we have not seen from the New Orleans team?
Brendan, I don't feel real confident in the linebacking core, the off-ball linebackers. Now, I'm a big fan of Isaiah Stallbird, and I think I love his continued development, and I think he has a place in this defense. I love the hard-nosed play of Danny Stutzman. I love the fact that they brought back Caden Ellis. But you're missing Demario Davis, and I'm very intrigued to see how that's going to affect the Saints defense, both on the field, Davis's talent, elite instincts and awareness. How much is that going to be missed? Now, Caden Ellis is a good player. Nobody expects him to be Demario Davis. And the same could be said of Stutzman, Stallbird, and even Pete Werner, because those guys aren't Demario Davis. But we know that Pete Werner is a liability in space. We know that same attribute is not a strength of Danny Stutzman's game. And even Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis has nice awareness in zone coverages, but he's not going to stay with too many tight ends or backs in man-to-man coverage if asked. So my wish list is for these young guys, specifically Stallbird and Stutzman, along with Jalen Ford. I need to see a big step in their development. Again, I'm not asking, I'm not expecting them to be Demario Davis, but if I'm going to point at a weak spot on the roster, I feel a little bit uneasy about that. And I certainly wouldn't mind seeing a veteran linebacker brought in. If not to take a spot, then to push these guys into elevated play to hold their spot. Specifically, and I'm going to write an article on over on Saints Wire before the end of the week outlining this exact topic. But there are a couple decent ones out there. Bobby Okereke, late of the New York Giants. He'll only turn 30 in August or September. So he'll be 30 by the start of the season. But I mean, he's been a consistent 120, 130 tackle a year guy throughout most of his career. Kenneth Murray, Jermaine Pratt, a couple others. Jerome Baker and Anthony Walker, athletic guys with an injury history that kind of scares you a little bit. And then, more solid guys, similar to what Warner and Stutzman bring, and Troy Reeder and Matt Milano. Those are some of the off-ball linebackers there. But yeah, I mean, if someone's asking me if I was allowed to make one addition to the Saints roster, it would be at this position with one of those guys.
I can understand, especially where your concerns come from. That's been, honestly, it's kind of been a little bit of an issue for the last few years that we've talked about, is the lack of depth. Knowing you are an injury away from playing God knows who at linebacker. And that's a scary thing. And I think they're still in that boat. They've gotten younger, obviously.
Yep.
But youth doesn't always mean better. And I do think they got worse losing Demario Davis, even at his age. And I think a lot of that has to do with what's between the ears with Demario. Still one of the highest football IQ guys you will see in the league. So
leadership too, and I think that leadership is an underrated factor. Now, Cam being back in that room, that elevates your leadership quality tremendously. I think Chase Young is going to take the next step, as far as that goes. And we know Caden Ellis is a really good locker room guy, but again, when you lose a Demario Davis, you are significantly weakened in just about every aspect that you can. I'm interested in seeing how these guys step up to fill that void.
Yeah. For me, I still think one of the biggest things on the checklist is, and you guys are going to laugh, but I still think it is a quarterback that's going to compete with Spencer Rattler. And maybe I'm just not giving Zach Wilson enough credit. But I look at some moves that teams have made to bring in veteran guys, right? I look at Philadelphia making the move for Andy Dalton. I look at, I know this is not one of your favorite guys, but I look at the Panthers bringing in Kenny Pickett. I look at the Browns, probably aren't a great example with everything up there, but even with their two young quarterbacks, despite the off the field issues for Deshaun Watson, you have a guy in that locker room that has played a ton of games. And I look all around the league and I see someone in the locker room that has played a handful or more than a handful of games. And I look at the Saints quarterback room and I go, okay, I don't have the stats in front of me. I can't imagine, and I think we did this once before this offseason, I can't imagine that Zach Wilson has started 20 games in his NFL career. So that's where my concern is. And you said leadership. You just said leadership is an undervalued thing when we talk about roster construction sometimes. And I look at that quarterback room, and yes, Kellen Moore, former quarterback himself. But I look around that quarterback room, and I don't see a lot of NFL leadership. I still think that guys can step up and be leaders within their own positional group. But I am concerned about when you have the highs and lows of the season, you have the highs and lows, especially the sophomore season. Who's that guy that Tyler Shuck's going to go lean on?
And I have a question about that to pose to you, though. And I don't necessarily disagree with your points. Bob
strongly disagrees with my points, and he's here to debate me in a first take style. I'm just kidding.
But do you think that the Kellen Moore's mentality? I mean, you have three former NFL quarterbacks on that coaching staff, and Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, and Scott Tolzien. Do you think that their mindset is we don't necessarily have to have a veteran, as that coach on the field, coach in the locker room, mentor kind of guy for Tyler Shuck, because we can be that guy. either collectively or maybe one stands out over the other three. I would think Tolzien, because he's the positional coach. But any of the three, do you think that they feel like one of them or all of them can be the sounding board and that mentor to Tyler Shuck, and therefore a veteran, a quality veteran quarterback like you've been asking for, they don't think is necessary?
Perhaps. I think we kind of dove into something similar a couple weeks ago when we talked about the lack of Kellen Moore connections on the roster and how that surprised the both of us. And that, hey, maybe this coaching staff just really believes that they can get through to these guys and they don't need kind of that middleman to try to be another voice. I think that could very strongly be the case. And again, maybe I'm not giving the coaching staff enough credit. Maybe I'm not giving Zach Wilson enough credit. But I still really value leadership. I still really value NFL experience. I also think that's why I have a soft spot for the guys who work their ass off to make the roster year in and year out. You guys can look back at my favorites over the years, and I look at guys like Keith Kirkwood, who is not going to put up a whole lot of numbers, but damn it, he was there for year after year after year and worked his way onto the roster. I look at a guy like Austin Carr, who didn't have glowing statistics, but was on the roster year in and year out. I look at a guy like, here's a guy that does not fall in the category of what we've been doing the last few weeks, but a guy that I don't think gets enough credit is, like, I loved Craig Robertson for this team, for the leadership and being around and accepting different roles throughout his time in New Orleans. I really value guys like that, or the guys that I like to call the I give a damn guys.
Yeah, and these are guys that are busting their ass day in and day out, year in and year out, just to make the team.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they won't see significant playing time, and almost all the time, as you just said, they're not going to fill up a stat sheet. Kellen Moore, Scott Tolzien, Doug Nussmeier, all three of them were those guys. Again, and I've always said that it's those kind of guys more often than not that make good coaches too, because they know what it takes. They didn't have anything easy come to them, at least in their professional lives, and they had to work and scrap and battle, for every single inch that they got, was rightly earned. It's those kind of guys, and a lot of people feel this way. It's a long-standing tradition in basketball that people feel that way, about those kind of players. And there's something to be said about a football coach who has had to earn their way as a player too. And I'm with you. Craig Robertson, I was a huge fan of, and those other guys. Keith Kirkwood, such a great story, such a great guy, and some of the others you mentioned as well.
So I think that's still the biggest thing on my wish list is, and maybe I can expand that past a single position if we really want to, because you brought it up as well with maybe lack of leadership in the linebacking corps. Is I want leadership, and leadership can be found within, certainly, but somebody's got to step up and take the reins on it and be that guy. To your point, Cameron Jordan coming back, that's going to be a big shot in the arm in that category. But there's got to be somebody else, because you cannot continue to rely on these guys. And I go back and I think about what Alvin Kamara said a few weeks ago about, he said that he's starting to get to that point where he looks around and the guys that he knew were going to be around maybe aren't around anymore. And that's going to continue to happen. And the more and more that you rely on guys like Alvin Kamara, guys like Cameron Jordan to be the vocal, leaders in the locker room, that's great. But there's going to be a point in time they're not there. And if you're not having other guys show leadership qualities in the now, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt later.
I like the direction that Tyler Shuck seems to be trending as far as kind of taking over that leadership mantle on the offense. Because it's felt rudderless for the last few years. Outside, and you certainly hope that your quarterback does do that naturally. It can't just be, this is your leader, guys, go follow him. It has to be a natural progression too.
Right.
But to your point, you need a couple guys on each side of the ball. Who do you see emerging as the other, assuming Shuck does take that and it happens naturally? Who else do you see? Do you see one or two other guys that you're either hoping or you think might be ready to step into that role?
Yeah, I think on the defensive side, there's a couple really easy candidates to point to. So I'm going to start with the two easiest candidates in my mind to point to. Caden Ellis, obviously. I don't think I need to go into a big explanation as to why. But the other one for me is Chase Young. And I think a lot of that has to do with I hate the politics of what I'm about to say, but you know it to be true as much as I do. When you make the kind of money that Chase Young is making, there are further expectations for you, not just on the field, but off the field as well. And that is to step up and be the guy on and off the field. The other thing with Chase that I hope he's able to use to his advantage is this isn't a guy that was selected second overall and has just had this dynamite career. He has certainly had his ups and his downs throughout his career. And I mean, even look at coming to New Orleans on a 1-year deal, like a prove it deal. And he did. And he continued to grow and get better and has became a focal point of this team. So I'm hoping he can pull from that and be a leader in the sense of understanding that everybody's going to have their ups and downs individually, as a unit, and as a team. So that's where I would really like to see the leadership go. I think we have a real youth movement when it comes to the defensive backs, right? You have Quincy Riley, you have Jonas Sanker, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry. I don't see any of those guys being a real vocal leader personally, but I see Jonas Sanker out of those three being a guy who's like, let me lead by example. And I think that's a little bit of a dark horse candidate of, again, kind of Alvin Kamara-esque, not a guy who's going to be like really loud about it, but a guy who's just like, hey, I'm going to come in, lunch pail type of guy. I'm going to do the work every day, and you guys should follow me in doing that. When you look at the offensive side, I think it's really easy. Just like I said, Caden Ellis, I think it's really easy to point to the quarterback and say, hey, that's going to be the leader on this team. With the Saints being very young at the wide receiver position specifically, what are you looking for out of Chris Olave as a leader? And what, in your eyes, do you expect being either a vocal guy or a more lead by example guy?
First of all, Chris has to get his contract done first. But I think that's just a matter of schematics at this point. I think we both think that will get done certainly before the season opener, because you can't have a leader on a lame duck contract and a potentially going to hit free agency after 1 year. It's hard to fathom that Chris Olave is now the elder statesman of that Saints receiving corps. I don't know if he's older than Devon Vele, but I know he's been in the league longer. So therefore that makes him the elder statesman. And Chris, at that position with so many young players, Jalen Polk his second year. I think Trey Palmer his second or third. Vele is like in his third-ish, maybe fourth. And then you have the 3 incoming rookie draft picks and 2 additional undrafted rookies. So Olave certainly has to lead by example, but he also has to be the vocal leader of that group. The teacher, for lack of a better term. Now, it's not his job to coach those guys, but being the one with the most NFL experience. Hey guys, this is what works for me against this coverage, or when I watch film on this defensive back, or against this coach's philosophy. This is what I do. This is what I don't do. This is what has worked, so on and so forth. So I think from that aspect, it is up to Chris Olave to kind of emerge as the vocal leader, kind of the Cam Jordan, the way that Cam always did with that defensive front seven for so many years, and that's exactly I attest firsthand that's exactly the way Cam approached his teammates, his defensive teammates at those positions. I would like to see Chris Olave do that kind of thing, and we did see him be a little bit more vocal, in a good way. We see him take more. Last year we'd see him take more interviews. And I'm not going to say emerge as a leader, but maybe show those kind of qualities. And you and I would comment on his conduct and production on the field, and finally developing into the featured type of receiver, the number one type of guy that we had been waiting for. And maybe, just maybe, he showed glimpses of being that guy, off the field, in the huddle, and in the locker rooms as well.
Yeah, what you said is 100% true. It is weird to go, oh man, this guy is the veteran of the group. It doesn't seem like that long ago he was the up and comer, and I don't know if that says more about how miserable Saints football had been there for a while, or that we're just getting old. Well, I think leadership's really important. I think there is also something to be said for those roster bubble guys.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to highlight a couple guys that you have concerns about making the team, or a guy that you think could really be a dark horse in making the team. I'm going to start with a guy that I feel like I've started with the last few years, and I want to kind of open up the discussion on Kendre Miller. And if Kendre is healthy, which is the biggest if of his whole career, is he going to make this team? Because I don't know at this point.
Ability-wise, he certainly has the ability to not only make the team, but be a legitimate factor. But that's never been the question with Kendre Miller. That's never been the question with us. Right. Never been the question, really with anybody I've ever talked to, in the media or otherwise. But Kendre's thing, and this is the way I would feel if I were Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, and the rest of those guys. I know Kendre has the ability, and he might have stayed healthy through training camp, maybe even through all the preseason games. But can I trust him? And the answer has always been a resounding no. So even if, last year he did stay. I mean, he didn't see a lot of action during preseason. Maybe they were afraid they were going to break him. But for the first time in his career, he wasn't dealing with anything major injury, from the injury front through training camp practices or preseason. And obviously, as we all know, he made the roster, handful of games in, got hurt, out for the year. The Kendre Miller story, rinse and repeat. And because of that, and because of the talent that I have in that running back room, Kamara's back, not the same player anymore, but I think still a quality back. You brought in Travis Etienne. I don't think you're going to get much argument from anybody that Kellen signed him with the idea, this is going to be my feature back, my number one guy. So you have Achan, you have Kamara, you have a real lunch pail guy in Devin Neal. Who frankly, Kendre Miller has more. I love Devin Neal, but Kendre Miller, natural ability wise, blows Neal out of the water. He blows Audric Estime out of the water. But the big difference is Neal could be trusted. I mean, yeah, I know Neal got hurt himself, but I mean, he does the little things that I want third, a fourth, or fifth running back to do. Same with Audric Estime. In fact, Estime was the most dependable back on the Saints roster as it turned out during the year. So yeah, there's no doubt that Kendre Miller should make the team because of ability. But even if he remains healthy through training camp and preseason, can I trust him? And I just don't know. When you've been when your girlfriend cheats on you 2, 3, 4 times and keeps coming back, saying things will be different, eventually you got to say, I've had enough. Things aren't going to be there, or I can't trust that things are going to be different, because I don't want Kendre Miller to break my heart again.
I think that's fair. I think that's very valid. As I've joked, I think I'm one of the very last people to be holding any stock in Kendre Miller, but he's just too damn talented not to be on a roster. I think I'm finally at the point where it's like, I just don't see a world where he makes the roster. And I think part of that too is he was drafted by a different regime.
He was.
And it's hard for a current regime to get a feel for a player that you didn't draft that hasn't been healthy.
If I'm the Saints, Brendan, I try real hard to trade Kendre Miller during training camp because you don't. Listen, for a conditional day 3 pick.
Just anything.
Yeah, pretty much, because it would also make me absolutely. And this is the tantalizing thing about talent and potential. It would, if I'm Kellen Moore, it would make me absolutely sick to my stomach to cut Kendre Miller, and he goes on with another team, and he manages to stay healthy and do everything as a football player that we thought that he could do when he was drafted out of TCU. It would make me slightly less sick if I was able to deal him somewhere for a conditional day 3 pick. And by conditional, I mean, all right, 6th, 7th round, unless he hits these these playing time incentives or these yardage percentages, and maybe you get a 5th, 4th round pick if you're really, really lucky. That kind of conditional deal. That way, at least, if Kendre does go on to even be a star somewhere else, just a productive back and a healthy back, I would have gotten something. And that's why I have HN. I have Neal. I know what I have in him. I like Estime. He's that lunch pail guy. And people, you could speculate all you want on whether or not Kellen Moore really wanted Alvin Kamara back. We're never going to find out the true answer. That's irrelevant. Kellen Moore has Alvin Kamara back. And we all believe that this is probably Kamara's final year in a Saints uniform. But guess what? Kendre Miller's a free agent after this year too. So either way, you could potentially lose both guys, and still need a running back, for depth purposes during the 2027 offseason. So I'm looking at my running back room, and I see what you're saying, Brendan. But just due to the fact that I can't trust Kendre Miller, and other teams are going to bank on that too, saying, you know what, we're not going to even trade you a 7th round pick because I think you're going to cut him. And if you don't, I don't care, because the guy's never stayed healthy anyway. That way I don't have to roll the dice and and potentially break my heart. If I sign Kendre, he shows me in 1 or 2 games how great he could be, and then he gets hurt. But if I'm the Saints, I try like hell to deal him sometime during training camp.
Is there a guy for you on this team that is either a guy that is rising and could make the roster, or a guy that is questionable, kind of like Kendre, where you have your concerns on whether or not they're going to make the team?
I'm a big Jalen Polk guy. You know
Mhm.
that, Brendan, and you folks that follow my work or us here at the Bayou Blitz, you probably know that too. Um, I've sang Polk's praises enough, but I'm going to stay at that same position. And if Polk doesn't make the team, it's because Trey Palmer has beaten him out.
Mm.
Uh, I don't think there's any doubt that Alave and Jordan Tyson are going to be your starters. Vele probably your third, although I think that that's where Polk is really competing. I can't see them moving on from Bryce Lance. You don't invest a fourth round pick in someone just to move on from them, before the start of the regular season. Barry and Brown's got to be the front runner for your kick returner. Well, we've run, forget running out of, we've run out of receiver spots. Trey Palmer has played pretty well, during OTAs and mini camps. I shrug my shoulders at that. I mean, that means nothing to me, other than he's just with the rest of the receivers trying to get on the same page as his quarterback. But I like Trey Palmer a lot in college. I like Trey Palmer in the limited exposure that we saw him with the Buccaneers before he got hurt. And again, just like with Polk, the Saints brought in Trey Palmer. And lost him relatively early. In Polk's case, they never had him. They traded for him knowing he was going to miss the season. But they lost Palmer almost immediately after signing him to, I believe it was a hamstring injury. But they liked him enough to keep him around. This offseason, even though they knew they were going to make other moves at the receiver position. And Palmer. I'm really excited to watch this receiver battle this summer. I do think Jalen Polk not only makes the team, but has a fairly defined role. I'm not going to say significant. I'm going to say defined. But if he doesn't, it's because a guy like Trey Palmer is going to beat him out.
Trey Palmer's not a name I expected to hear tonight. I think that he's a guy, and I think that's a perfect pick because I think there's a lot of people that have forgotten that Trey Palmer's even he's not even a name in the hat guy. Like he could legitimately make this team, and has proven to be a quality NFL receiver. Staying on this topic, I do want to address, I guess, depth at the defensive back position. Specifically, obviously there was a weird shuffle at safety last year because of retirement and injuries and more injuries. What do you make of where that group stands today? And who are you projecting to be maybe I think we can say with almost certainty there's probably going to be a rotation of about 3 guys that are regularly getting snaps in different formations and different looks for this defense.
Yeah, and I like this defensive backfield, but they're all young. And just like we said towards the beginning of the show about the young linebackers, specifically Stutzman, Stahlberg, and to a lesser extent Ford, they really have to take a big step in their development. Looking for the same kind of thing from McKinstry, from Quincy Riley, from Jonas Sanker. I need Julian Blackmon to stay healthy. I think your cornerbacks are McKinstry and Riley. Your safeties, if you're lining up in your nickel and you're going 5 defensive backs, I think McKinstry, Riley are your corners. Blackmon and Justin Reed are your safeties, and Jonas Sanker is your Alontae Taylor, your star, your wildcat, whatever terminology you want to put on him. The wild card here is Martin Emerson. Martin Emerson was a really, really good cornerback for the Cleveland Browns. I'm talking like borderline shutdown guy. Maybe not a true number 1, but a very good, solid number 2. And if he doesn't push Riley for that spot, then he could push Sanker for that, for that nickelback spot in pass heavy situations, because I don't particularly like Sanker in a coverage role. I love him on the off the edge as a blitzer. Love him as a run defender. In a two deep safety formation, he's a solid guy too. But Martin Emerson is better in coverage, point blank, than what Jonas Sanker is. But I'm looking forward to seeing how these roles get defined. Because if Riley develops, then he's going to beat out Emerson, and then Emerson has to compete with Sanker, maybe even Blackman, for that star spot. So yeah, I don't expect a crazy amount of shuffling in the secondary, but I don't really think the roles are defined right now. Reed is your top safety. McKinstry is your top cornerback, and after that, everything is a little bit of a shuffle.
It's kind of what I'm thinking as well. I think Reed was criticized a lot last year.
We did too.
We did our fair share of criticism. This is going to be a year where I think it's really important for just that defensive backfield as a whole to take a step forward. I think we can safely say that the corners did. I think Riley and McKinstry both had some really positive growth over the last maybe 5 or 6 weeks of the season. I think it's important for them to be on the same page from the jump and not regress. I think that's one thing that is a lot easier said than done, but when you're looking at guys going into their second year, third year, for whatever reason, you have like the sophomore slumps. And I think it's really important for that group to not regress and keep their foot on the pedal from the start.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. How do you feel about the defensive line? The trench guys specifically.
Yeah, and that's where I was going. I was like, I still have my concerns. Obviously, you draft a guy in the second round to go in and compete. I have to tip my cap to Brian Bresee because I was in a position like this last year saying I don't know how he fits. He's a guy that I really like. I just don't know where he fits in this, and I think he played very well despite not it being – it wasn't like a perfect, hand in glove fit. He definitely had to do some things that challenged him and made him uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really good for the team, which is great. However, you still need fat guys, especially to run this type of defensive system. You need some fat guys. Vita Vea has been the epitome of dominant fat guys over the years, right? And I still don't know if the Saints have that dominant fat guy. And I don't even need one. I don't need one. I need a group, right? You don't have to have just that one dominant guy. Give me a couple guys that are pretty good. I think they're progressing in the right direction, but it's extremely hard to say that when I haven't seen these guys play, especially when you're talking about those youthful guys, whether it be rookies or what have you. I think they did an okay job, retaining some guys like Ridgeway wasn't bad last year, but he wasn't good. He was just kind of a guy. He was just a fat guy. And yeah, it's great to bring guys like that back, but I don't want to have to heavily rely on them, if that makes sense.
It does, but I'll tell you what, I don't know if I can see, if we're talking now, this is the third week of June, fourth week of June, I guess now, but if we're going to highlight maybe a surprise cut, it would be maybe Devon Godshaw. And now Devon Godshaw fits the profile of a big fat guy. We want to plug those holes, and eat up space and occupy blockers in the middle. But guess what? He didn't do that last year, and that's why they got him. And since he didn't do that, that's why they used a second-round pick on Kristen Miller. Now they're banking on Kristen Miller being that guy, and I hope he is. because if he is, then John Ridgway can be just another guy. Because you need at that position in particular, you need a few, one, two, maybe three, just another guys, to give you a decent rotation. So that way your top guys don't get worn down during the course of a game, during the course of a season. Because Brian Bresee, Nathan Shepard, they aren't the guys to plug in the middle when you do a three-man line. They are labeled as defensive tackles, I realize, but in Brandon Staley's scheme, they're going to be more, when you have three guys with their hands in the dirt, Shepard, Bresee, they're going to be your outside guys. You need a guy like Kristen Miller or Devon Godshaw or John Ridgway or Christian Boyd, for that matter, to really be that guy in the middle that just he gets pushed in the center of the line. He occupies two, sometimes three blockers, and he's a guy that that other teams saying, you know what, we're gonna have a hard time running up the middle of this game. Again, Devon Godshaw was not that guy. Not last year. And Kristen Miller was drafted to be that guy. And just because, even if he does turn out to be, I'm not saying there's not a place on the team for Godshaw. What I am saying is Godshaw might have a fight on it. He's going to need to very noticeably outplay Ridgway and Boyd and Xavier Harris, for that matter, too. To find a way onto this roster this season.
I'm glad you brought that name up because, he fits that role of, I don't know, when it comes to Godshaw. Like, you didn't really show us enough last year to solidify the fact that you're going to be here this year. Like you said, obviously they thought that, or they wouldn't have used a second-round pick. But to that point, that was my problem with that group all of last year between Godshaw, Ridgway. It was just kind of, we know what we brought you in to do. You're just not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, a change had to be made. Now, it is difficult to make that drastic switch from one defense to another, but it shouldn't have been for those guys because those guys ran that system most of their careers, and they were brought in because they had been somewhat successful running that system in their careers.
Back to Bresee, do you think it's telling that, and I was right along with you last year, not doubting the talents of Brian Bresee because we both liked him, even coming out of Clemson, but having open doubts about what his fit is going to be in Brandon Staley's scheme. And I'm with you. Even though he didn't have his statistical output was down, he was in on a lot of plays. Do you find it telling that the Saints, even though the production was down, the numbers themselves, that the Saints had zero hesitation in picking up his fifth-year, rookie option? Do you think because of that Staley is thinking Bresee's going to have a bigger year this year? We feel it. We got to keep him under contract.
Yeah, I think so. I think last year was really good for him because it showed that he could be a multiple defensive type of guy. Right. I think a lot of times when you're talking about the trenches and those interior of the defensive line guys, it's really easy to box them into a corner and say, like, this is the formation. This is the only formation you can play. And so when that change happened, like you said, I think the both of us were concerned, like, well, you just done a first-round pick on this guy, and now you're switching the defense. And how's he going to fit? He's not really a hand in the dirt guy to rush off the edge. He's not a stand-up edge rusher either. Like, what is he? But he showed he can do a little bit of a couple things to not just be productive, but be disruptive for a defensive line. So I do think it's telling. I think that it says a lot about the belief that they have in him. And I think it is a lot of the Saints also saying, look, we see the hard work that you put in a year ago to do some things that we asked you to that you may not have been immediately comfortable with. So I think that should everything go well this upcoming year for him as well, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be he's going to be in a Saints uniform for a long time. I don't think he'll ever be a guy that is like a Pro Bowler or anything, but he's going to be one of those guys you look back on his career and you're like, man, that guy was just really good and consistent for a long time. And there's something to be said about those type of individuals. Speaking of individuals who were, consistent and good for a long time, Bob and I have been talking about guys who have not been consistent and were not good for even a short period of time. And we found our way to close the show with this as of late. And we said we'll do this until we run out of guys, and then we'll go to something else. We'll go from one to the other in terms of, we've been talking about guys that we were really hoping would pan out that just didn't for the Saints. Maybe the next one months from now is guys that we thought were terrible signings or terrible acquisitions that end up being, really positive for the team. But for now, we're still on guys that we had high hopes for that just sucked. So I hate to be I hate that I wasn't really blunt about that, but there you go.
Who goes first?
Age before beauty.
That's fair. I don't remember. Did I do Eli Apple?
No.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
And listen,
Eli
that's a simple
Apple.
one.
Burnt toast. Eli Apple.
Eli Apple. And listen, I was an Eli Apple defender, strong defender for a long time. I thought when the first year that they brought him in, it was right at the trade deadline, folks, if you remember. I thought he made a nice team with Marshawn Lattimore down the stretch of that particular season. And I was excited for the following year. I shouldn't have been. Apple reverted to the bust that he was with the Giants, and just a complete mental case on and off the field. And I know, and for those of you that know some of the backstory, you know what I mean when I say a basket case on and off the field. But yeah, I mean, all the abilities in the world, but just a fragile person. A fragile player. You say, and if Delvin Breaux is a very good friend of ours. Delvin all the time says, and I know he's a youth coach now. Delvin runs a ton of youth camps in the New Orleans area. If you have a little one playing football, check out Delvin's page. I give it a strong recommendation. But Delvin always said, and most good cornerbacks will, the number one thing you have to have is a short memory. You can't let the fact that you just got beat or you just committed a dumb penalty affect you on the next play. And Eli Apple did. Eli Apple would let a dumb penalty or or getting beat affect him into the next week, into the next month. And it was just it was sickening to see, because you knew the guy had the ability. And like I said, 2018, people were still critical of the trade, and I'm like, nah, this really solidified this defense, and it did. It just, like I said, it did not work out, and it imploded. The following year. Now, because it imploded, the Saints were forced to go out and get Janoris Jenkins, and Jackrabbit was a tremendous addition. But yeah, Eli Apple was one that I thought that not a lot of people were excited about, but I'm like, hey, this is a first-round pick, first-round talent, played with Marshawn Lattimore, they were opposite at each other at Ohio State. So, they were able to feed off of each other as when they were with the Buckeyes. And I think that worked a little bit in that first year together. But then, once opponents started studying Eli in Dennis Allen's system, they figured out how to get to him early. And once they did, he completely fell apart. And it was frankly pathetic to watch.
Okay. I'll go offensive. And not as dramatic, but I'm going to go Jarvis Landry.
It's a good one.
I was really excited for Jarvis Landry, and I don't think the results are as much his fault as it just being Father Time was catching up, and it was not a good system fit for what they wanted them to do. Outside of that one game in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And that was the crazy thing. You have week 1 in Atlanta where Jarvis keeps the Saints in that game. And then Michael Thomas has 2 late touchdowns, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Mike Thomas is back. We got a compliment with Jarvis Landry. And then it was just gone. Like in a blink of an eye. Like that was the only moments we had. And I'll be willing to admit when the Landry signing happened, it wasn't like, oh my God, we got Jarvis Landry in the middle of his prime. I was willing to admit that, but it was one of those, oh, okay, like I can see why they would do this. Obviously, you're also going to be selling a ton of jerseys and LSU fans and this and that. Like it was definitely a move for that as much as it was anything. But I was like, man, if we could get like a 70% of what Jarvis Landry used to be, like this is going to be fun. This is going to be good. We just didn't get it at all. And again, I don't think it's so much his fault. I don't think he's as much to blame as some of the other guys we've talked about so far. It wasn't a good system fit. And age really showed. He didn't play again after New Orleans, right?
Nope.
That was it.
Nope.
So
I believe that his final NFL game was in a Saints jersey.
So there was that. So again, I mean, I don't have anything like super negative to say. It was just one of those. I was really excited. I believe Jarvis posted a like an edit like somebody had made of him coming back to Louisiana, and I think that was even more got everybody a little bit more hyped up. Like, oh my God, go! And it didn't work. It didn't work. Given a lot of those Saints teams, just you could say it about the team in general, that just didn't work.
Yeah.
Do you want to go an offensive guy, or do you want to keep some in the back pocket?
Do you have another guy?
I could come up with another guy. I don't have one off the top of my head, but I can come up with another guy.
You know what? Let's just do one this week then.
Okay, great. So there you go. Eli at Burnt Toast Apple, and Jarvis Landry. Which again, no shade towards Jarvis Landry, just didn't work out. Like there are guys on this list that that we've already said, and some that we will be saying that will get a lot of verbal abuse for the time in New Orleans. Jarvis Landry's not one of those guys.
Right.
It wasn't too bad. Bob, let's talk about once again for the folks that missed at the start. We had some fun news that we delivered with Get Checked or Check Out. We have some confirmation of some things going on. Obviously, we have the Paris trip. Now we have a confirmed trip, confirmed dates, confirmed location. We're still going to be hanging out in the sun, having a good time. Bob, you're excited. Go ahead, remind the people or tell the people who missed at the beginning exactly where we are going March 2027.
Yeah, we have our dates and destination for the 2027 Get Checked or Check Out trip. And you can join the Get Checked or Check Out Foundation on March 18th through March 22nd, 2027 in beautiful Punta Cana. That's in the Dominican Republic. This is also our first all-inclusive land getaway. So for you folks that are opposed to cruise ships, and that's why you didn't go on the trip last year or the year before, I don't want to hear no excuses. This is all land. And it's going to include wonderful members of your Who Dat Nation, as well as Tyrone Hughes, Courtney Roby, Michael Lewis, Delvin Bro, and other Saints greats to be announced later, along with their families, along with my family, along with me. At least I'll be going down there. I can't promise I'll be coming back. That's another story for another time. Guys, I promise you, that if this will be your first trip, I promise you that this will be an amazing and unforgettable experience, and all while benefiting the incredible charity at Get Checked or Check Out, tcynow.org. Check out their site, donate a little bit, see what they're about. But the best way to help the cause is to treat yourself to a tropical vacation. And those of you that have been asking about the dates and where you're going to go next year, I now have the answer. And it only takes a small deposit to reserve your spot now. You can contact me on how to do it and the rest of the details. We're going to be talking about this week after week, guys. But reserve your spot ASAP, because the prices on doing so are great and the deposit to reserve it is small. So reach out to me, whether it's text, email, direct message, however you want to get in touch with me, I will let you know how. If you just want to call Mary directly, Mary is running, taking all the reservations, and Mary's number is 985-516-1530. And here's what we're going to do. Brendan and I are going to iron out the details. But if you are reserving, and if you are reserving through the Bayou Blitz, and when you get a hold of Mary, in the upcoming weeks, let her know so we can keep track. Let us know that you made your reservation so we can keep track. We are going to have some kind of giveaway, Brendan. We're
something.
But you can only be eligible, if you let us know through the Bayou Blitz that you reserved, along with. You know what? Let's do this too, Brendan. If you've reserved and you're a first timer, we're going to give you 2 opportunities to come on our show as a guest. One before the trip, whenever your schedule permits. One before the trip, just to talk Saints football and yuck it up with us a little bit. And then one after your trip to tell everybody that didn't go on the 2027 trip about your experience, about meeting us, about meeting all the Saints greats that we talk about that you're going to meet. You're going to have 2 opportunities to come on the Bayou Blitz with us if you reserve your spot for the 2027 trip, along with getting yourself entered into the contest for a giveaway raffle that we're going to have on the trip itself. More details of that got to be figured out by Brendan and myself, but we will keep you updated.
Yeah, no, I like that. And this was not pre-planned. That was something Bob just spit off the dome. So I like that. First timers get to come on the show for a little segment and pick our brains or yuck it up or whatever the case may be. Bob and I are pretty open books for the most part.
You regulars too on this trip. We're going to get you on the show too, but we want to do something to entice the new members, and we'll get you on with one of the guys that are going on the cruise too. The 4 of us can sit in together, but like I said, you got to reserve your spot now.
So if I reserve my spot, do I get to come on the Bayou Blitz?
You do.
Wow.
And since you're the tech guy, you can make a double Brendan.
A double Brendan? Yeah, I'll have my laptop and then I'll have my phone set up and it'll be Brendanception. That won't drive people nuts. Bob, where can people follow you and your work as you continue to talk and write some New Orleans Saints as we move out of silly season and towards serious season?
Yeah, and this is a fun time of year for me because you not only get to talk about training camp, write about training camp battles and everything else upcoming, which I will be doing, but I love this time of year because I get to write about New Orleans Saints history,
Oh,
and I'm doing a jersey countdown. We are, as we sit here today, we are 81 days until the Saints season opener. So with each day, I am doing a jersey countdown for that particular number. So, of course, you Jimmy Graham fans like Brendan and myself, tomorrow is the history of the number 80 jersey. Everybody who's ever worn the number 80 for the Saints, I will have something to say about. Yeah, and I have fun doing historical pieces like that. And you can follow all that and more, all of our work by not only myself, but several talented writers that work for John Sigler over there at the Saints Wire, at Saints Wire over on Twitter, or it could be found on any internet search. It's also a USA Today publication. So, like I said, we're real easy to find, real easy to navigate the site too.
For myself, you can follow me virtually everywhere right there at BT Boylan. Excited to break the news to you guys about the upcoming trip. I think Bob and I can both say we look forward to seeing many of you there. And I know Bob's going to be happy just to have me on the trip for the first time. But until next week, that's Bob Rose. I'm Brendan Boylan. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Bayou Blitz podcast. Until next Wednesday, first and foremost, or no, maybe not next Wednesday. It might be next Thursday. My travel arrangements, but we'll figure it out sometime next week.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, yeah, we're back on the road tour, Bob. I'm sorry. It's gonna be a little crazy through July and maybe into August a little bit. But until we see you folks again, I hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity, and we'll see you sometime next week for another edition of the Bayou Blitz. See you then.